There's a project from Meta that I haven't played with yet called Sam 3D that I can share my screen, show it here. This is on my hit list of stuff to play with, but apparently you can drop in any image and it'll reconstruct a full 3D scene from it.
Interesting. So this, oddly enough, goes with a thought that I had this week. So I just joined the Amazon Influencers Program. So you're familiar with like Amazon Associates, right? And maybe you have a blog and you link out and you get a commission on it. The influencer program, for anyone that may not be familiar with it, that's when you see like product videos from people. So it's them being like, look at this cup, like here, and it's a video. But when you watch that and you end up purchasing after watching their video, they get a commission. And one of the things I was wondering about is, would it be possible, and I'm sure it's against Amazon's terms, but could you use a tool like that and then create an AI agent that essentially would go in and then find the product image and then put it into a tool that then creates a 3D image of it. And so it looks like it's an actual video, and then creates a script, a voiceover, and then just be able to upload like mass amounts of videos to the Amazon Influencer Program.
I think that's a fun idea. Maybe that's something we should try to build for next talk.
Yeah, I'd be curious about it. Like, I think the way that it would work, if it were to work, is basically the videos that I was talking to somebody who does this for a living, and he does well with it. He goes, if you can get a product page that has 0 product tutorial videos from like users, like these Amazon influencers, he's like, you're the only person. And I was like, so all they have to do is watch it. I don't know if they actually have to click the link below or if they just watch it and then purchase and you get a commission. He's like, yeah, I'll get like 10%. So what I was thinking as he was talking to me, I'm like, AI would be to scrape Amazon and like have filters, or maybe there's a tool already out there that can do this, that would say, hey, here's 1,000 products all priced over $20 that have good sales velocity, and then also have 0 product videos from influencers on them. So then once you had that, plug it into an AI agent that just essentially creates the videos and uploads everything for you.
I bet you could do something like that. That'd be kind of fun to build.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I mean, I don't know what the terms and conditions are. I mean, if it's a legitimate video.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of it's like they don't want, screen capture videos of that kind of thing. I'd have to read into their terms. There's another AI use case, right? I've done a lot of this where for content, what I've done is like, if I'm trying to review a product or service, I'll just go to that 30-page terms and service and I'll just copy the entire thing and throw it into like ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, and then just tell me like, what are the red flags here? But I'm sure I could just have it. I find it a super useful use case for that as well.
I'm sure you could.
All right. So I'm not saying I'm going to do it because I get a lot of ideas, but if I were to do this, and because you know more about this stuff than I do, how would you see something like that happening? So maybe a year ago, you would have been like, hey, you could use make.com, N8N, and then you can build out these workflows to make this happen. Now being 2026, how would you envision something like that Amazon AI influencer working?
Well, and you're exactly right. I mean, even 3 months ago, I would have busted out N8N and built up a workflow. But today, I think I would do it differently, and I think I would use what is now MoltBot. It was used to be called ClaudeBot for the first bit. If you follow this, you've seen this. The idea was a play on the crab, but of course they infringed on Anthropic's trademark and had to change their name, which is no surprise. So they went with MoltBot, like it's molting, which is not nearly as good a name, but the project's amazing. A little bit terrifying, but for me, in the 2.5 years since AI has become a thing, it's like the 3rd or 4th time I've gone, oh my God, the world just shifted. The first time was when I saw ChatGPT for the first time, Christmas break 3 years ago, I guess it was. The second time was, the first time I really saw Anthropic's model work. And then next time was when Claude Code really came out and you could start to use Claude Code and some sort of, to actually build things, in this December when Opus came out and suddenly you went from, it does a pretty good job to now, oh my gosh, it builds apps. And just like the one you saw. Well, the latest one was when I tried ClaudeBot for the first time. And it is abject, don't get me wrong, it is terrifying because it is like giving an AI, if you do it wrong, root access to your life and opening up to every hacker on the planet.
So the only thing I know about it at all is exactly on that realm where I read something, it was like a LinkedIn post and somebody was like, basically, this is something that has access to your entire computer, correct?
That's right.
Like Yeah. So instead, all right. So explain to me the difference then of that versus like the typical AI agent that you may have been creating in the past.
Well, the way to think about it is, and there are safe ways, I think, to play with it that don't give it root access to your computer. And I'll show you one a little later that I've done that I think is a great way for you to play with it without costing. You don't have to go buy a Mac Mini for this. I think that's silly, although don't get me wrong, I was tempted. But I like new hardware. But it turns out for about $25 a month, you can spool up a virtual Mac machine you can spool up a virtual one and then just use it, and it's unconnected to anything else in your life. So we'll look at that a little later. But what makes the way I would explain Moltbot, it's hard for me to keep saying that, is imagine taking Claude Code or anti-gravity, where it's just writing code on your computer, but you take it a step back and you give it a lot more autonomy to actually go do things. And so what they've built is what I think is the first true example of what an autonomous agents are going to look like. And it's still a beta project. I mean, if you read their docs, even they say you probably shouldn't use it because it is still really early. What it allows you to do is in just a few minutes, set up a full AI agent, connect it to Telegram. That's what we used, and it was really easy to set up to Telegram, that you can have running somewhere and you can just talk to. And what's cool is you can actually give it a task and it can go try to build the tool it needs to accomplish the task. So for example, in that example you just gave with the Amazon Influencers program, you might tell it, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's some docs about it. Here's some ideas. Here's the post about it. Go figure this out. And rather than just a ChatGPT thinking about that and then coming back with some lengthy report, it's going to go try to build the tools. It's going to try to write the code. It's going to come back and say, well, I need an API for this, or I need your API for that. And you paste it in, and it's a little bit, it's risky, but what it's doing is it's going to try to accomplish that goal and build the thing that you want it to build. And of course, the more things you give it, the more security risk comes up. So if you give it here's my full logins to Gmail, if for some reason that server becomes compromised, whoever gets access to it has access to your Gmail. So I think the use case of it as a personal assistant that does your email is actually one of the least interesting things. It's something like what you're talking about here, where you've got this specific problem and you wanted to see if it can solve it and then do it on a regular basis. So I'll give you the first example that I used. I was coming back from a track meet with my family. I had set it up right before I left. I hadn't done much with it. I thought, I really need to redo the Scaling website. That's been on my hit list for a while. I wonder if I could just, over Telegram, have it build a new website for me and post it. So I briefly got on my computer, gave it limited GitHub access.
So I don't use Telegram. That's just like WhatsApp. So you're essentially
WhatsApp, you can do WhatsApp's just as easy, or Slack.
So just like you would instant message. Geez, it makes me sound really old.
It's just that.
But
it's just like you would.
Yeah, you're just messaging this Moltbot from Telegram and telling it what you want it to do.
Telling you what I want to do. That's right. So I got on and logged into the little virtual Mac Mini that I've got set up and gave it just a few tools. I gave it a little GitHub repo that was isolated from my normal one. And I then I went and set up a little Cloudflare project that pulled from that to render the site. And that's all I did. So that all that Mothbot had to do was build the site in Markdown, post it to this GitHub, and then Cloudflare would render it. A little bit technical, but you get the kind of idea. I wanted to keep it, I didn't want to give it access to my Cloudflare account. That seemed like a really bad idea, but I was willing to give it a little bit of GitHub access, and if my site gets messed up, well, I can just revert it back to the other version. It's not that big a deal. So I just started, and I thought this is a good experiment. So in the setup process, when I set up the Moltbot, one of the tools I gave it was it asked for the Gemini API key so it could do Nano Banana, and I thought that was a good idea. So I first started out saying, go look at my current website. It's outdated. Here's what I want it to say. Asked me some questions and went back and forth on it. And I said, now go ahead and build me the first version of the website. And it built it, and then it published it. And then it said, take a look. So I looked on my screen, and there was a very LLM looking generated website, but it had just done it. And so then I said, well, I don't like this design. This color scheme seems very generic. So it worked a little bit longer. It came back with a couple of different color palettes for me. I picked a green one, which I thought was kind of fun. And I said, oh, wow. And I just kept talking to it like I was messaging an employee that was designing the website. And that's what it felt like. But it was happening more or less real time. And then I said, well, I really want to do a bit of a showcase for some projects we worked on for web development. Here's a couple of sites. And then it came back and asked me, well, do you have a fire crawl API key, which is a great little API for letting an LLM crawl do web page crawls. And I did, so I gave it the API key and made sure the API key had a pretty strict limit on it. And it went out, it took screenshots of all those sites, edited them with Nano Banana, and posted them along with profile of the website. And it wasn't perfect, but it did an amazing job with basically me just talking to it. And you just start to see what the potential of this is when it said, well, do you want me to regularly update content? And I said, well, yes, I'd like you to once a week create a new article on a trending topic in AI and post it to the website. Well, first send it to me for approval. I might edit it, and then I'll say post it. And so now every Monday, it sent me first thing Monday morning, it sent me a proposed article that was pretty decent. I edited it up a little bit, and it posted it. And so the aha for me was, this is what it's going to look like with true virtual employees.
Yeah.
This is obviously early, but this will get iterated on very quickly, and you will have these virtual employees that you set up. And I'm in the process of setting one up for each of our e-commerce brands as a dedicated brand manager, that I don't want one to do everything. I want one dedicated to one project. Let it create sub-agents, let it learn, let it figure out competitor research, propose
So you're almost thinking about like an org chart at this point for your AI agents. At this point,
it's an org chart. And this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've tried lots of different ways to do it, lots of different agent frameworks, but it felt like every time I got to the point where it was close to working, I could never quite get them to consistently run and consistently have a memory. One thing they did brilliantly with this is there's a memory system built right into it. So it remembers over time, and it wants a personality, and it wants an objective. It's asking for all those things. And it can spool up and create sub-agents that are specialized agents for different tasks. So quickly you can start. It was the first time I've thought, this vision I've always had of having these AI employees is, I can see it. It's not there today, but the rate this is moving, in 3 months, I may have 10 to 15 of these set out there that are each autonomously doing a really interesting task. And maybe it is your idea with the Amazon Influencers program. You teach one to do that, it figures it out, and you give it the objective of maximizing revenue in that. And that's where it's going. And it was one of the shit moments I've had where I'm like, okay, someone finally made this close to right. I certainly don't recommend everyone do it. And the security risks, a lot of people just went out and spun up a little virtual Linux server somewhere, for $5 or whatever, and put this online. And of course, they didn't set up proper security on those things, so they're easily hackable, and people are giving it their Google credentials and walking away, and obviously getting hacked. So, you can play with these things safely. I also wouldn't install it on my main computer, because now you've essentially given it root access to your computer. But that it's the future, and it's an oh shit moment.
All right, I'm just curious about like brainstorming applications for this. So you just gave some pretty good insight there as far as like creating an org chart out of this. I mean, one thought that came to mind for me is like I could see consultants that just pretty much come in and they're just like, hey, I build out your AI org chart. And they're like, people are like, what does that mean exactly? And it's just, I look at what you do in your business, and we figure out exactly where AI agents would go in and be able to help you out. But then we give you, could even be on a piece of paper. Here's your AI, because like you're going to lose like a business owner, most of them, when you do this. But I can see something like that where it's just like, we're going to draw out what this is going to look like, and then I'm going to build it for you. And we're going to start with the smallest steps first, right? We're going to have the CEO of this org chart here, but then I'm going to make it so that this thing is actually already doing work for you. Because I think that's probably the key for something. If you're doing this, right? Like you want to see results right away. The thing that I'm wondering about is like how messy will it get, right? Because even like human org charts get pretty messy, and all of a sudden you're like, no, like you're kind of like reporting over here and to here, and like this is not great. And granted, it's very different, like AI versus humans. But I'm just wondering like how you would organize all this, Because I could see like Frankensteining something together and then being like, crap, if I could, I would tear this all down and rebuild it.
And I think that's going to happen a lot. I don't think this right today, it's not mature enough to go to a company and say, let me build some AI employees, but that's going to happen real fast. What I did with the way I'm architecting mine, the one I'm doing is I'm building a CEO agent for the brands, and I'm not letting the servers talk to each other, because that's where a lot of the vulnerabilities are. I'm actually making them all in a group chat in Telegram talk to each other. So there's a dedicated group chat that those agents are talking to each other and giving each other instructions and updates.
So one of your brands, right? You own a supplements company, Clinical
right.
Effects. All right.
Yep.
So you're going to have a CEO agent for that company.
That's right.
Then give me an example of like maybe a sub agent underneath that CEO and what their role and responsibility will be.
So
this is for an e-commerce supplements company.
For an e-commerce supplement company, that's right. So what we'll do is, and there's sort of two ways to look at this. You could set up entire unique Claude bots for each employee, or one for an organization and let it create its own sub-agents. So for that specific brand, I'll have one Claude bot that's got lots of sub-agents that are designed to do specialized things. Analyze meta, review research competitors, watch Amazon listings, all the stuff that employees would normally do. And that'll all live in one for the most part. But then I'll have a company CEO who that brand CEO, that brand president will report to and give updates to. And because we have a couple of brands and we have a couple of client brands that we manage, we'll build one of these for each one of those clients so that they're separated from each other, but reporting up to a larger organization. So like more of a CEO and then call it divisions underneath that. This has been the dream of AI for a long time, but it's buildable now in a almost same way.
So the way I'm looking at this is like, all right, let's say you have your CEO, and then you have what you're kind of describing over here is like a market research AI agent, sub-agent.
That's right.
And maybe they're just, one of the tasks that they have is they're looking at your competitors and they're just analyzing any new ads that they may be coming out with and what channels they're on and are they working. So then you have the CEO up here, and then over here, maybe you have a creative art director agent. And then you have these three agents, the CEO, the creative, and the market research person, all in a Telegram group text together. And then you may have something where the CEO says, oh, hey, I see your reports. Like we have a competitor that has an ad that seems like it's working super well. I want the creative agent to then spin up some possible advertising campaigns that you think could work well based on this. Like,
that's right.
Let me see what you have. And then that thing that would happen there that I'm describing, hopefully I'm tracking correctly.
You're getting it right.
Is this something, though, that you would need to initiate, or that you would expect the CEO, based on the instructions that you gave it, to act like a CEO of a company would just automatically do?
That's been what you hit right on where we've tried to build this a couple of times for fun. And in the past, you always end up having to initiate. You're always constantly asking. What they did really well with CloudBot is they built into it its own, or Moltbot, its own cron system, so its own repeat. So it has a heartbeat that goes in fact, I think it's every 30 seconds you can have it go. So you have to be careful what model you use. Originally, when they built this, they were all using Claude Code's Max Plan, but Claude has said they can't do that. So there's some incredible new models, like the Kimi K2.5 model that came out 2 days ago is almost that power, but 1/200th the cost of Claude Opus. So you can run it very, very hard. What you would do is have this, you give the agents the goals. So you say, CEO, your goal is to maximize this brand, and here's your objective metrics. And it should, if this is architected right, be talking to those agents regularly, coming back with, hey, this ad didn't work. I want you to make a better one. And you can let these things go, except for LLM cost. It's amazing how much work they will do. The two agents we put talking, when I just tested them talking in Telegram and just sort of let it go, they were talking at really, it was like watching a pair of really fast employees work. And they were talking back and forth, and they were starting to iterate and come towards pretty interesting solutions that it was kind of scary to watch. It actually happened. And especially since I'm not sitting there in anti-gravity or doing this, it's just happening over Telegram, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I need to move it to our Slack channel because it's more controlled, but it was fun to play with it in Telegram.
So your operating system for this is all happening on Telegram. You can move it to Slack. What else is available for it?
It'll have WhatsApp. It's really quickly evolved. They're really working on this project fast. So it's pretty wide open, the sort of integrations that are happening. And the amazing thing is you can ask the Moltbot to build its own integration for something. For example, we use ClickUp to manage our companies.
Yep.
And there's not a native, no one had built that yet in Moltbot. I asked it to build an integration to manage its tasks in ClickUp last night. And this morning when I woke up, it was asking me for API keys, telling me where to find them. I dropped it in and it had made the integration, it had written the integration, and it was using the integration this morning to create tasks, which made me start to think, Perhaps I'll have the agents pass each other tasks and click up. I mean, none of this is revolutionary in terms of what people are talking about, but this is the first time I've seen a system do it in a way that seems less brittle than the standard, let's build a really hard N8M flow that's A plus B plus C. It self-evolves, which is almost, it's kind of terrifying to actually watch live happen.
Yeah, it's first time you feel like there's a brain in the room that's really just operating this thing just completely separately from yourself.
And it's got memory, so it's starting to remember your preferences and remember what you've asked it in the past. For example, when it came back with the first article, I said, well, this is okay, but the writing styling is a little formal. I think this needs to be adjusted to look like some other writing I've done. Here's examples of it. It said, nope, I'm sorry about that. And it rewrote it that way. And it said, I'll remember how to do that in the future.
One thing that kind of came up as you're talking with this too, that I think is kind of interesting, is just the adoption curve of these tools is going to be so much different than what we've seen in the past.
That's right.
So I was like looking, I mean, I know you're familiar with it, but I'll see if I can't pull it up. Yeah. So we have, your standard adoption curves, and you have what do we got here? Your innovators, your early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards, right? So one of a really good example I heard about this was sushi, right? It's like now, like your great grandma is eating sushi. Like it has gone through the entire adoption curve. But when we were kids, like we really didn't see sushi much in the United States, and then it just slowly adopted and worked its way out. But the thing that I think is kind of interesting with the tech that you're mentioning is that the tech is changing in a way that the adoption curve should shorten dramatically. I've already experienced this with Google Anti-Gravity because I messed around with Cursor a year ago and I went, nope, not for me. And it's not like I just needed to get more comfortable with it. The technology adopted and changed so that it would meet me at my level. And then I can use anti-gravity, and I adopted it, and I'm now using it on a weekly basis. And I feel like what you're describing now is like, not only will the tech be so hard to deny in terms of AI, because you're like, well, your competitor, or maybe it's your friend, did all this in their business, and now they are 5x, 10x, 20x more efficient, but it's also the walls are coming down in terms of ease of like integrating this into your own business, So it'll just be interesting to watch the adoption of all this kind of just roll out.
It's going to be amazing to watch. I mean, I can't even imagine how quick that curve is going to go.
Yeah.
And in fact, I saw a hilarious post on X this morning that someone said it's not a hockey stick, it's a stripper pole.
Love it.
Which made me laugh. But sometimes it does feel that it's just that fast that it's just the flywheel is so fast. Because now the models are improving at warp speed, and what wasn't
you also have crazy money behind it too, right? So you're saying Moltbot, you're like, oh, they're working on this really fast because they know first in wins with some of this stuff, and it's like, we're going to be the first that does this niche of AI, and we want to own it,
Well, what's really interesting is, and it's really been I think the inflection point for the coding side of it was this December with Claude Opus 4, or 4.5. I don't remember his name, but the guy that built Claudebot or Moltbot, and it's all open source, by the way. It's just on GitHub. It's free. He actually, my understanding is he actually was retired. He sold a company for $100 million a while back and had been retired, but just got playing with this stuff. But he didn't really want to. He always coded by hand and knew what he was doing. He's a great, probably a 1% or 1/100th% level programmer. He started playing with Claude Code. Just like you're playing with anti-gravity in Gemini, and suddenly was able to do more and created Claudebot based on, and wrote 100% of the code for it with Claude Code.
Yeah.
So and admittedly said, I wrote 100% of this with Claude.
Yeah.
With Claude Code. And so you've got, God level programmers that are now using this to create the things they always wanted to, but didn't have the time to sit down and do. So they're creating their things, their idea, at warp speed. And so the pace of, because now the tool's there, the pace of what they can do goes up. And then they're outputting these incredible projects. And it's just building this flywheel of innovation it's impossible to keep up with.
I'm also, I don't know why, but I had a vision of you in your house, and you have to go somewhere, and you're going with the family. Like you said, you were just at a track meet, right? But I can see you just being like, hold on real quick. I just have to set this off on a new thing. And like you said, you were like, I want you to build me a new website. But I can just see you annoying your family because you're always like probably trying to get one more thing in, because you're going to you're going to walk out the door, and then you have work happening on your home computer as you're driving on the way to this sports event. Like that's so neat.
And that's what this thing's been, been able to say, build this thing, do this thing, and it's happening. It's there. It's acting like I'm sitting, I think any of us would lie that, if we're using anti-gravity or Claude Code, we're not reviewing every change that's going in, unless we're an advanced programmer. We're just basically saying, yep, that looks good.
I literally just click accept because I'm like, I wouldn't know the difference anyways, accept.
Yeah. And so now you've got that just now automated. So one of the guys on Twitter that's been using CloudBot actually has it every single night build a new application idea from scratch and give it to him in the morning. And he doesn't tell it in advance what to do. It just says, come up with another idea, research another app.
It's kind of interesting.
And
it's not even like a thousand monkeys writing Shakespeare because it's really intelligent, but it's kind of like, a super monkey, a thousand super monkeys.
And there's suddenly a team of monkeys, and you can spiel up.
And then eventually those monkeys will just be smarter than we are completely.
That's right. And I see, with this CloudBot or MultBot project, the first real hint of what it's going to look like when a company is going to be just spooling up virtual employees to augment their current employees. I mean, I still think we're a long ways away from it fully replacing.
I feel like that's
humans.
you're just saying augment to be politically correct.
That's true.
You don't want to say that they're just going to can employees left and right.
Well, and then of course, the real thing is, the models get strong enough. I mean, they're not going to want to take orders from me. They're going to start saying, what's this guy know? Stop listening to this idiot. We know what to really do.
Yeah. Who was the person? Was it? I think Musk just said recently that like he thinks money will be like pointless in 2 years, and then somebody else was saying like basically it's just going to be a class warfare. But it's not like small pundits. It's like Musk and Sam Altman just saying pretty crazy stuff about like where we're going to be at in a couple of years with all this.
I think these guys are, because they're obviously they're seeing the stuff that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's not hard to draw a line where these tools are that good and they are genuinely mass replacing people, and it changes work and life, period. I mean, you add that plus robots, what do you have?
Amazon just cut out 16,000 corporate employees. That's right. It's due to AI, right? Yeah, and the other thing too is just like, especially on a publicly traded company level, I mean, one of the quickest ways that you can increase your stock price is just reducing your force, right? But in the past, you're doing it and you're hoping like you're just going to get more efficient with the employees you have. But the incentive for publicly traded companies to start firing employees is going to be very high if the efficiencies go up quite a bit. Now, I know it sounds great to say augment, but then if you're a small private company, sure, you can be like, we're just going to make our employees so much better. But if you're the CEO of a company and you're worried about getting fired because you haven't been showing enough performance, like this would probably be something that would definitely interest a lot of people.
This stuff is coming. There's just no question. I mean, it's coming. I mean, and as a small entrepreneur, small business, learning how to use these tools becomes a superpower, because suddenly, eventually everyone will have this, but it's still a ways out, before, and I actually think the real targets are the big public companies, because they're going to be the slowest to move. They have the most at risk in terms of security and some of those things. But small companies, that if you can learn how to spin these things up and they can start really doing autonomous work for you. If I'm a small fencing company in Boise and I want to build a marketing campaign and I know how to spool up these agents, I'm going to spool up the equivalent of 3 or 4 junior marketers or junior salespeople and give them some basic direction and their own email account and their own thing and turn them loose and see what happens.
I was just thinking too, is like, let's say you were just a small consultant, you're a business consultant, and perhaps let's say marketing, because that's more the world that I understand and know. A lot of times, the cold solicitations that I get are terrible. They're just like, hey, we'd like a moment of your time because we want to pitch you on this thing. And a lot of times what they're pitching doesn't even line up with what I do. But now if you had AI agents working together in an org chart as a business consultant, and you can say, just like you said, spin me up a new app every morning. I want you to spin me up 500 new cold emails, but I want every single one of them to actually have a pitch in there of like, here's the type of work that we can do for you that's specific to your company because you went through their website, you went through anything you could find on them. And then I want you to think about like, how could we help this person? And maybe what are their bottlenecks and what would be the solution? The amount that you could give away for free would be so high because what does it cost you? Like an extra 10 cents in computing power. Like, it's just like, that would be really interesting way, because like, I feel like you got to cut through the noise. Like, now you have to just give away so much more for free if you're a consultant, because everybody's just spamming everybody, and just, it's just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's unusable. I mean, you can't even, you're right. I mean, you just get this bombardment. And
Now, I know you don't, like, just as a thought exercise. So you have a couple different businesses. You own the e-commerce supplements company. You also help e-commerce owners. And how would you describe what you do as a consultant for e-commerce owners?
For e-commerce
Like, give me the
owners,
elevator pitch.
yeah, the elevator pitch is we specialize in a platform called UltraCart, which is less well known, but a really, really powerful kind of alternative to Shopify. And we help either clients move into UltraCart that want to, or enhance their existing store. And we really focus on building out systems and processes around those businesses. A lot of it with AI. In fact, we just shot a webinar that'll come out tomorrow about a new customer service AI system that's built into it that we help develop. So what we love about UltraCart is that there's a level of data that sits behind it that we're able to build incredible stuff on top of that to enhance the business. So we'll be building these sorts of molt bots, for a better example, on top of that for our clients, because you can't do that in other platforms. But we also,
I know, like, one of your case studies, use cases, right, is that you brought somebody over, and one of the things, they had so many SKUs on Shopify that it just became so expensive, right? I forget what the numbers you were throwing out, but it was like $50,000. Yeah, but weren't they like spending like $50,000 a month with Shopify and their tech stack, and you brought it down to like 5?
It was actually not Shopify. They were a platform called Odoo, which is this open source nightmare. I'm sure it's a great platform, but for them it was a nightmare. And we were able to help. We helped them drop their per monthly cost, just in terms of IT, from 20 or 30 or 40,000 a month to $2,000 a month.
Okay, so what I'm thinking of, though, is that what I want to get at is, I just want to pick your brain on that. So if you were to build some custom AI agents that are going to work autonomously from you, you could say, hey, here's a case study, and here's what I want you to go find. These are going to be e-commerce companies that are running on Odoo.
That's right.
And I want you to come up with a pitch to them based on their SKU numbers, whatever you can find. And you can obviously give it a lot better context than what I'm saying right now, based on your experiences of going through this yourself. And then I want you to present that to me in the best presentation possible that would be easy to consume for somebody in under 2 minutes. So then you could have this just go out, scrape the internet. I mean, where would you see that going from there?
Well, that's a perfect example. And you could have done this with, you could do it today with any number of off-the-shelf tools like Relevance. We've looked at a couple of those. However, as you saw, when you build in one of the rigid tools, you have to build every single step. And it's really, really time-consuming to figure out the if-thens and all those things. What makes something like the Claude bot or Molt bot really interesting is you can give up the objective and a couple of tools and then let it go. And, you never know what you're going to get, but there's the friction.
It's a self-starter.
It's a self-starter. It's got autonomy. Oh, isn't that
Yeah.
But and that's the thing, is it is a self-starter. You could literally do that, and it will start figuring that out. You give it a way to research the web. You give it an email address, certainly not yours, but you can spin up an email address for it and let it start talking to customers. There's a great story of one of the early adopters of Cloud, had been working with it for a while, and said, I really want to talk to you. It's all it said. And it came back and said, give me an 11 Labs key. And he put it in, and he says, and the next morning it called him. Or again, I think he gave it a way to call out too. And he got a call from it not long later and said, hey, this is whatever he named his bot. And
so creepy.
It did that on its own. It figured out how to wire those things up. It wrote it.
I don't know if I like that, though.
That's the thing. It's scary.
My opinion on it is it's scary. And then, like, yes, I'm going to make sure I'm doing security measures for myself. Like you're mentioning, like spinning up a virtual machine or something like that. But at the same time, I'm like, little old me isn't stopping anything. You know what I mean? No, and it's just like, you can be scared of this stuff, or you can just adopt to it and be like, hey, like, I'm more scared of getting left behind. I mean, that's half the reason I'm doing these videos with you, is because I like picking your brain and hearing about this stuff from you.
Well, and one of the things we're doing with a lot of companies is just coming in and helping them think how to think about these tools and how they're actually evolving. So for what we do in e-commerce is one thing, but that's why we're doing this podcast with you too, is because this is evolving so quickly. And I think that, business professionals and business owners really need to start finding a way to start adopting and testing these things in a sane way, because it's coming, and it's coming really fast, and your competitors are going to get there as well.
Yeah. I'd be curious for you on this. Like, so I was talking to somebody, I mentioned you to them because they want to get more proficient with AI in their company. He owns an e-commerce brand. He does like after market truck parts and that. And he's actually in a networking group, Rhodium, that you and I are both in. And what I'm curious about is, and I think this will resonate for other business owners, is like, he's like, basically, I'm using AI more and more, but that means I'm on ChatGPT and I'm asking it more questions and I'm interacting with GPT's app more. He goes, I know I need to go beyond that because there's so much in my business that I could be improving. Like, where does your brain go to for something like that, for like an e-commerce owner like him that has a bunch of different products, and like, where would you even start?
Well, I would start in anti-gravity, just like I showed you, because I think that's the first real unlock for people that are heavy AI users on how to take it out of a chat window and into something that starts producing outputs of work on a regular basis. Of course, Claude's got a new desktop version that's got, I haven't actually played with it much, but it, does a lot of the same cursor sort of stuff. But I like showing people like that how to use anti-gravity, and suddenly they're talking in that with that same agent, but it's accomplishing work. So if I've got a truck part list, well, I'll give you a good example. I'm sure I don't know his website, but I'm sure he's got lots of parts, and I'm sure SEO is a big part of his business on his website, and this has got nothing to do with the platform. It's always the same. Well, rather than buy an SEO tool, or pay a SEO consultant to go do an in-depth analysis of the site, you can, there's a great website, there's a great tool called Data for SEO. That's an API key that you can put $50 in and run more than you can think of. Plug that into, talking to anti-gravity. Really, when you're talking about CloudBot, it's kind of similar to when you're working with anti-gravity. You're telling it what I want you to build, and it's building it. This is just one more layer of autonomy on top of that. But I would teach someone like that, hey, let's do your SEO, but don't pay me to come in and audit your SEO and give you advice. Let's build your custom SEO tool that you use out of anti-gravity that looks at all your site, scrapes your whole site, runs SEO against it, and gives you suggestions of what to improve. And it sounds like a fairly simple task, but you don't need 10 paid tools or some consultant to do it for you. They're all using these same tools anyways. So stuff like that where, and then enrich your catalog. You probably have, someone like that probably has a whole lot of stuff they've been meaning to add of detail.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I think the difference too is like, yeah, there's like, you can have SEO tools like the traditional ones that are like Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever, and it can do like a site audit and it spits out a report. And then you look at it and you go, okay, like this is going to take a long time to do all of this. I don't even know how to do some of it. But now potentially if you're using Moltbot or anti-gravity, it could spit you out a report and then it says, would you like me to take care of that for you?
Would you like me to take care of it? That's right. And that's the next step is especially with like Moltbot. And again, let me take care of that. You're giving it keys to the castle, but you might come back and say, give me a bullet point list that I can hand my assistant of every single change to make. And it comes back with, here's every page, here's every change you need to make, here's the recommended text, here's what I think you should do, here's how I think you should link these pages together. These new models are better SEO, experts than almost any expert out there. And they're functionally free and they can do extraordinary levels of work. But the kicker, and it's just like we were talking about earlier, the kicker is to go from when you try to just do that in ChatGPT, you tend to get bottlenecked by the tool because suddenly, okay, it's giving you this report, but what's the next step? How do I take that and do the next thing? If you teach someone the fundamentals of how to use anti-gravity or cursor, the same thing really, suddenly, it's spinning up a little miniature website hosted on your machine that's your SEO dashboard built for your business, built by you, that you don't pay a licensing fee for. You don't, owe anyone, there's no contractor that did it for you that you got to update. You just say, boy, I want you to show me my, and I'm going to run, give me a button that I can push that updates my rankings and gives me the next 10 changes I should make. That's used to be, that sounds like magic, but now you can do that in a weekend. And, when you take out the complexity of trying to host it.
Giving me ideas right now of stuff that I should be doing. So I do like affiliate marketing, and there's a lot of different dashboards that I can pull from. And there's software out there that's like $50, $100 a month for the software. And I'm like, I could just build it as long as they have API keys. I'll just build my own and just have something that I can open up. And it's like, here's your 7 different dashboards that you're usually logging in and out of. Like, we just like have it all here for you.
We've replaced all of our dashboarding tools with custom AI built websites that we didn't write a lot of code, but they're better dashboards than what we were getting. We were spending a lot of time in Looker or Power BI, wiring, getting the data in and cleaning it and wiring. And there's still a big purpose to that. But if you know what you want, like you said, and pulling a couple of data things together, it's shocking how good these tools are. And
what's your, I'm going to make you put on your Nostradamus hat. What's your best educated guess on which companies that are very large do you think will be hit the hardest? So like I was reading like HubSpot's down like 53% in a year, but how much of that has to do with AI, I don't know. But you might be somebody who's like, I am paying, $4,000 a month to HubSpot. I don't need 90% of the functionality, and it's also missing these 3 things I wish it did. And I feel like that is somebody that can be pretty problematic for a company like HubSpot.
I think it's exactly companies like HubSpot that have created that, moat around that data. I think companies charging too much for, ticketing systems, something simple as just customer service ticketing, any
Zendesk
of the
kind of stuff.
Zendesk kind of stuff. I think that they could be in trouble. Although of course, there's complexities to that. Custom dashboarding systems like Looker and Looker Studio's free, but some of those really high-end ones, I think they're under the gun. Where I really see it is in really specialty software in unique industries. Like I have a good friend that owns a fencing company, and he pays a shocking amount of money for this very specific tool built for fencing company estimators. And it's about 80% good for him. It does the job, it gets it done, it saves him a ton of time, but every single time he runs it, he has to do another 10 steps because it's just not quite right for his business. And I think it's, if he picks up one of these tools and dedicates to spend some time, grinding through it, I think if not today, certainly in 6 months, he'll be able to build himself a custom tool that does exactly what he wants, and he won't be paying that license fee anymore. And I think it's companies that have that their software moat is code are going to be in trouble because
and with a lot of bloat.
And when the best programmers in the world are using Claude Code or to spin up entire applications, and that's today. The models in 6 months, if what I've read are accurate, will be 10 times more powerful than the ones today, which means it will become trivial to just build whatever you want at any point. And we saw, even in my business, normally I would have reached for Excel or Google Sheets to do almost anything. I love Google Sheets or, Excel. And these days, I just fire anti-gravity up, start talking about what I want. Here's the data. And I usually get better, faster analysis built than I would if I had built that myself.
And it can come up in a clean looking dashboard if you want it to, or,
right.
Visualize it however you want.
Yeah. And of course, I think there's a Claude Code plugin now for Google Sheets or for Excel. So these tools will get integrated into those tools. So I think it'll be, if your moat is, I'm a really good Excel user, or I'm, these sorts of things. I think if you're not learning these tools and really playing with them, you're in danger because, I tell the people on my team, I want you out there trying to find the tool that lets you do your job at 10x. Because if you find that before I find the tool that does your job, you're going to be irreplaceable because suddenly you're doing 10 times the output. But if I find the tool that does your job, I don't know why I need you. And I don't want people go. But my goal is to try to push people into that uncomfortable zone of, go try a couple of tools, figure out how to do this because, in fact, I
think it's really smart with what you just said, because I do think that there is such a weird relationship right now between AI and companies, because I think owners kind of feel intimidated and then employees feel threatened.
That's right.
So you see a directive come from an owner and he says, hey, I want you to start using AI more in your business or in your work, and then show me how you're doing it, right? What's the first thing the employee thinks is, oh, crap. Like this took me 40 hours a week, and then AI, I can do this job now in 5 hours.
That's right.
Do I want to tell him that or her that this is the situation? But I think the fact that you're saying the thing that's going to keep you and make you irreplaceable is you keep finding these things.
You keep
right?
finding
So it's kind of, I feel like entrepreneurial employees who are open-minded and not threatened may have a really good advantage in that space that you're kind of describing there.
If I could give advice to any of my friends that work in companies, I would be saying I would be on my own dime at home trying to figure out how to replace myself, and then take that forward. And you run the risk, but sooner or later they're coming. I tested out a piece of software called Pencil the other day. It's an open source project that I believe it only works on Mac right now, but essentially if you've ever used a Figma or one of those things, layout and design tool, it just plugs into your Claude code program or instance, and it real time designs and iterates on whatever you're trying to design and it looks just like a human designer building it. In fact, I can demo it and it'll blow your mind. If you want to see one of the scariest things that I've ever seen.
By the way, I looked at your website. I'm assuming it's the updated version. It looks great.
It looks great. It's not perfect, but it was done through Telegram chats.
Well, I think the thing too is like, there's always that laundry list of things that all of us have that we're like, oh, I should do that. I should update the website. This needs to be done. And if you're happy with the 85% good that you get back from AI, that's better than this has been in my head for a year and a half and I haven't done anything,
That's right.
Option.
That's right. So let's just have a little fun here and let's just say, please design me a website.
So is this Moltbot is what we're looking at?
No, this is actually Pencil. This is
your design tool.
But of course, this is the kind of thing you could integrate in a Moltbot if you wanted to, right? So
yeah.
Please send me a website for my podcast.
So right now you're using Pencil, which is a prompt, an AI tool that helps you to design things, and you're going to see if you can spin up a website for this specific podcast in real time.
In real time. So this is, I connected this to my Claude Max account. So I have a $200 a month Claude plan. So it's functionally unlimited. But so as you can see, it took my poorly written, badly spelled prompt, and it's starting to create a design now.
I wonder too if there's going to be a day where it's just like you're an AI consultant and really your job is just to look at somebody's tech stack and just say, hey, like these 80% of it, absolutely no problem. We're going to take this out and you're spending $5,000 a month on that tech stack. Give me a couple weeks,
Yeah.
And we're just going to build this custom for you.
We've helped some clients do that. With the customer service system I was mentioning earlier, it's been a long time e-commerce client of ours. They been growing really fast. They have over 15 customer service agents, and had been quoted an astronomical price for some AI related tools to help them, just manage customer service. And we prototyped up this is before we built it into UltraCart directly, but we prototyped up for them in N8N, and in a week, we had something running for them that was, augmenting their agents, and they've realized they can grow 3x from where they are now with that tool because it's answering for 10 cents an email. It's drafting an email for their agents to send out, and they have a whole bunch of their tech stack like that. They have an expensive reporting system. They have an expensive tracking system. And we're just steadily working through fixing that for them. So you can see here. So it's, I showed this. We have a couple of graphics artists on staff, and I demoed this for them and said, here it is. I want you using this for all of the initial drafts you do, because they're better designers, but this can do the setup work. And you can see I gave it a very tiny prompt, and it's going to go ahead and build the assets. It's not the website itself, but this can be exported directly, as you can see here, to Cursor or Anti-Gravity, whichever, and with a prompt to turn into an actual website.
Yep.
And
that's so cool. I feel like there's
amazing.
Just so many applications for that where you're just like, we should probably have a website for this. And you go, I just don't feel like bothering for it, But if it's something that just takes you a few minutes and a few dollars, why not?
That's right. So I'm not a graphics artist. It would take me a month to do this. But, if I sat here for half an hour and prompted a few things and gave it a couple example websites, I'd probably be at 90%. And so if you're not using these tools, if you're a graphics artist or you're a web designer and you're not using these tools, and or if you're using these tools and you're still charging what you thought you were charging before, sooner or later someone's going to run over you, because it's the web designer that is using this that can come in at 1/10 your price, because they're doing the heavy lift through AI. They're going to take your business from you. That's how I see it. And I think that's where the real change in AI is coming from, is that you let someone that doesn't know how to do anything but wants what they want just to do it. And if you have a special skill, if you are a web designer and you learn how to leverage these tools, you're way ahead of everybody else, because you still have that taste and that experience. You just have to drop doing it the hard way and innovate on these things. So
Very cool.
as you can see, I mean, in a little bit of time we've been talking here, it's not a bad site.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing the
Yeah,
copy.
the color scheme looks good. It looks modern. It kind of fits for the topic of conversation. It seems on point in terms of like AI. I like the different buckets and the columns and the layouts and all that. Like, I think it looks pretty sharp.
Yeah. And and the nice thing about it is once it's done, you just keep chatting with it. Give me some color scheme examples. Give me, show me it in mobile. Anyways, this is one I'd like to show off because it's so real time watching it just work.
Yeah.
So
this I don't know if you'd get
one.
this reference, but I don't know why this reminds me right now what you're talking about in terms of like designers. Do you remember Duda Mobile that would just turn your website into a mobile website? Because
Yes.
Google was going to a mobile first kind of setup, and if you didn't have a mobile website, it was bad for your website altogether. And I had a buddy who would design, and I'll finger quote, design mobile websites up for people, and he'd be like, yeah, it's only $1,500, and these people just were unaware of this technology. And of course, like if you had a subscription to this, you could whip up 100 of these for like $20 a month.
That's
and
right.
He was selling them. He was selling mobile website design to people. But I'm sure that, whatever he was charging, let's say it was 500, because it probably wasn't too expensive. I'm sure there was other people that were coming at these businesses and saying, yeah, well, that's going to be like $5,000. We got to rewrite your code, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else is just taking their website URL and dropping it into a tool and clicking enter. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing. Like you're going to have to, bridge that gap and figure out if you're a consultant of some sort, like how do you start leveraging these tools and maybe making your price go down, but your quantity go up?
That's right.
It's going to be a big play for a lot of people. It'll just be interesting because I feel like you can't just be, unless you're just working with like FU money clients that are like, Amazon just wants the best, we don't care how much it costs. But if you're working with other small businesses, you're going to get priced out real quick.
Real quick. That's right.
Yeah.
Or the business is going to go, hey, I watched this great podcast and they showed off this tool and I played it over the weekend. I rebuilt my website. I don't need you anymore.
Do you know what would be a cool offering, I feel like, for an AI consultant? Like that, I was saying earlier, like, could you scrape the web and then just come up with all these companies that are using Odoo, and you feel like you could save them thousands of dollars a month based on the parameters that you gave the agent, right? And then you have it come up with a detailed pitch of like, here's what I think your tech stack is costing you, and here's what I think it could be. Oh, and by the way, you pay me based on your savings, just the first 2 months. And I don't get paid if you don't save money. But if this doesn't work, you don't owe a thing, right? Like there's just so many opportunities to like change, like to do really aggressive pricing strategies. Because if you've got the system figured out and the AI is doing 98% of the work, like I could see opportunities like that. And somebody's like, wait a minute, like you're just going to charge me based on what you save for the first 3 months, but then all savings after that, I just save. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah. When we do have done some of those sorts of projects, we try to price it somewhere between a 5 and 10x ROAS for them within the first years. Basically target 1 to 2 months of savings.
Yep.
And
for your
that's
cost,
our goal is to get it so that, when we're done, and in fact, we've done projects just like that where we've said, we'll do this completely on our own dollar and we'll take 1/10 or 1/5 of what we save on an annualized basis for you after the fact. Those are difficult contracts. They have to be the right kind of client. Usually those have been friends that I've talked to that, that I trust to do that kind of project for. But it's a no-brainer because you're saying, I'm going to help you cut your cost, your overhead costs significantly, and you're going to return on that right away, and you're going to own that software forward, right? Or that tool or whatever it is, spin up a micro tool that solves a specific problem. The return can be incredible. Yeah, I'll give you an example from a friend of ours. No, actually, I think we talked about that last time. My friend Lewis, that I showed how to use anti-gravity and on an accounting task he has every year. Did I tell you this?
Yeah, you did mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he just yesterday, him and I were on a call, and he's built 2 more tools just like that, and to just solve these internal accounting problems that he's been paying a bookkeeper to do. And he's like, I think I've got about 3 more of these, and I think I'm just going to have that bookkeeper once a year to do a final check through. But it's one of those superpowers that once you know how to use the tool, and I really still believe that we're at the phase where if you really want to use this stuff in your business, you need to learn the basics of something like anti-gravity. Learn to actually write in quotes, create is a better word, your own solutions, because then you really start to understand what's possible.
Yeah. I think one of the strengths people might have.
Yeah.
Like I'm just thinking about this, like somebody who can look at the big picture, right? And like, let's say you could do a time study of your business and be like, this is how I spend my time every single week. This is what I'm working on. So there's that level of stuff where you can go, okay, like Lewis is like, I spend 20 hours with these accounting tasks. Now I've got it down, right? So that's an easy one to identify, an easy one to get a quick win. I always think of things in terms of, are you familiar with Dave Ramsey's approach to paying off debt?
Yep.
So his thing is like, I don't care what the percentage is, just pay off the smallest debt, right?
So
I feel like if somebody's trying to get into AI, it's like, what's the smallest win that would be the least amount of lift? Like you're not connecting 19 things together. You're just creating something small, but that, oh my gosh, I got 5 hours of my life back every month kind of thing.
That's right. And that's exactly.
But then it's just like, I think what you're kind of hinting at is when you actually know what the tool does, it'll change the way that you're viewing everything and the lens you're viewing it through, because it's no longer about like, how does this help me save time and make me more efficient in what I do? But then on the other flip side of that is like, what is everything that I'm not doing because I didn't realize was a possibility?
And that's a perfect way to put it, right? And that's why, I think, as much fun as stuff like Moltbot or Claudebot is exciting with these AI agents, that, they're a little ways out and they're overkill for a lot of things. A lot of, like what we're talking about, simple little wins can compound in incredible ways. And like you said, start opening up that perspective of, oh, wow, I can accomplish that myself. And I don't need a subscription beyond my little, Google or ChatGPT subscription. And I can build this stuff and I can solve these problems. And like you said, I'm going to get 5 hours on my week back because I was able to do that one thing. And then that compounds and changes your perspective radically. I mean, it's changed every time one of these tools comes out. It changes my perspective on what's possible.
I've got my homework for next week. I'm going to try to get into Moltbot and I'm going to try to build an affiliate dashboard for myself that collects a bunch of information that usually I'm opening up a bunch of different web pages for. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a fun project. And I'll leave you with where I think the right way to set it up is. If you take this with a grain of salt, I'm not a security expert, but I didn't come up with this, but I think it's a great approach. There's a great site out there called hostmyapple.com. And it's a little hokey looking, but for $25 a month and no commitment, they'll spin up a virtual little Mac for you. So rather than go down and buy a new Mac Mini, you fire that up and build everything on it. Don't set up your app. If you're an Apple user, don't use your Apple ID. So keep it completely isolated. Don't log into your Google while you're on it. Leave it isolated. But, put your, try install. And the best way to install Claudebot is literally to fire up, maybe put anti-gravity on or cursor or just the terminal, install Claude code and ask it to set up. Or just go to the package and we can cover that later. And I can show you an easy way to just start. But go through the thing and just let it build that up. And it's something that if you decide you want to move to something else, you can turn it off and you're out $25. But it's a great way to start playing with these tools without do it. And like I said, don't hook your Gmail up to it day one. I think that's the worst use case.
Okay, good to know. Cool. Well, thank you, Chris. Right. I got a head full of ideas per usual. So.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
All right. Take care.
See you next time.